Are we live? Yes, we are live. Good evening, y'all. This is Mr. Rivas again. Hope y'all having a good day. Beautiful day outside once again. Clear skies, blue skies, nice little breeze going on. Try to get a walk outside or run outside if you can today. Next 3 weeks are going to be really good weather before it starts getting really hot again for summer. So try to get some exercise. Ejercicio if you can. Today we'll be talking about deer zombies. Last time we talked about the insect zombies. Now we'll talk about the deer zombies and scammers. Last time we talked about hackers. Today we'll talk about some scammers trying to steal your money. So let's go into it. Okay, so the ever since the coronavirus outbreak happened, a lot of people have been trying to scam other people, and a lot of people are losing money from these scams. So this article, let me put the laser on. Let's see here. This article I was reading said that as of April 21st, the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, has received 23,581 consumer complaints related to the outbreak, including more than 12,700 fraud complaints. Victims have reported losses of nearly 18 million, with a median loss of $553. So the average person that gets scammed from these coronavirus scams is losing about $550, and about $18 million total has been lost because these scammers have nothing better to do, so they're trying to steal your money. So what kind of scams are we talking about? Well, as you may know or may not know, the government issued stimulus checks out to qualifying people to help boost the economy and help people out with bills and groceries and stuff like that. So some people are posing as like fake companies, and they're calling random numbers saying, hey, we can make your stimulus check get processed faster, and we can get it to you faster. You give us your social security number, we can look up your info, blah, blah, blah. So they ask for your bank account info, and they ask for your social security info, and in return, then they promise to like boost up the payment process of your stimulus check and get it into your account faster. And there's also been reports of like fake testing sites and stuff like that, where they just take your personal information and they do a fake test on you, and then they send you off, and they keep that information, and they use it to hack into your bank account, emails, social security, whatever they can get into. So just be aware that if you get emails or texts or calls, or if your parents do, asking for personal information in exchange for like faster stimulus checks and testing, free testing and stuff like that, then it's might be a scam, probably is a scam. So be careful, be on the lookout, don't give out your personal information, and just be careful, y'all. A lot of people trying to make money off of this situation, which is unfortunate. So protect your private information, and don't give it out. Okay. Alrighty, let's go on to the next one. So, also with these scams, people are also selling like fake coronavirus cures. So there's been like a lot of I've actually seen a few ads on social media promoting these like fake coronavirus cures. They'll promote like oils and different types of therapies for coronavirus cures, and the CDC as of now has not announced. We don't have, I mean, around the whole world, we don't have any cure. There is no cure around the whole world, and there's no vaccine. So if you see an ad on social media for a vaccine or a cure to stop it, then it's a scam, and they're charging you a ridiculous amount of money. So just be aware of that. People are losing money. The average person loses about $500 from these scams. So just be aware of that. Just protect yourself and your family. All right. So last time we talked about, we've been talking about for about a week, 2 weeks now, ever since, well, the whole coronavirus thing, zoonotic diseases. Remember, these are diseases that can jump from animals to humans. So these animals, okay, they can carry different types of viruses that aren't normally seen in humans. And then if that virus mutates, it can infect human cells. So we went into detail about this in a previous lesson. Remember, what the current science out there shows is that the Wuhan wet market had the live animals out for sale, tons of different species. They were living in close quarters, a lot of feces, sweat, all these animals living close together. And then what scientists think is that the virus mutated, it jumped from bats to pangolins to humans. So we talked about this zoonotic jump last time, and then once it jumps from animal to human, then sometimes, like coronavirus, it can go from human to human, and then eventually it's only a matter of time before it spreads around the whole world like it has with coronavirus. So today we're going to be talking about a different disease that has not yet made the zoonotic jump from animal to human, but scientists are very concerned about it right now because of what they're seeing with coronavirus. So let's talk about chronic wasting disease. So chronic wasting disease is a disease that infects animals with hooves like deer, elk, and moose. And unlike the elephantiasis that we talked about last time, this is in the US. So all these red areas show areas where animals are infected with chronic wasting disease. And as you can see here, we do have deer in the El Paso area that have this disease. So what is this disease? What does it do? What causes it? Well, let's jump into that. It's a very, very, very scary disease. So this disease is not caused by a bacteria or a virus. It is caused by something called prion. So viruses and bacteria have their own genetic material. The viruses, the bacteria is a cell, it's a living thing. And then the virus is kind of just a little protein capsule with the DNA or RNA inside of it. A prion is neither of those. A prion is pretty much just a deformed protein, a protein that folded incorrectly and it became very dangerous. So proteins do a lot of stuff for our body. They provide structure for our body. They help repair stuff. They help build us up. They break down food. Enzymes are responsible for help speeding up many different reactions in our body. So we need proteins to live. They do a very important, they do so much for us in our body. Without them, we would certainly die. So it's kind of like my bad. So we have the normal protein here. So proteins are folded, and the fold of the protein gives it its structure and its function. So it's a normally folded protein here. And then this is a prion here. So we get the protein, and then if the fold changes, this is what we call a prion. So the prion is just a protein that's messed up. To give you an analogy, if you have a Lego piece and then that Lego piece breaks, that's like a protein that folds incorrectly and becomes a prion. Same thing. If I try to build a Lego car out of these broken Lego pieces, then that car probably is not going to function very well. It's probably not going to look very good. And it's going to serve no purpose. Same thing with this, okay? If the protein changes into this deformed protein, it's not going to really do us any good. It's actually going to cause us a lot of harm. So how do these prions kill us? So the scary thing about these prions and how they work is that if you get one of these, depending on the prion, but in the case of deer with chronic wasting disease, the way it works is that if the deer gets one of these prions inside of it, the deformed proteins that have the folding done incorrectly, that deformed protein, that prion, can go to proteins that are folded regularly and cause them to deform. So it's kind of like a domino effect. If they get one of these prions inside of it, it goes to the healthy proteins, and then it causes them to deform, and then they build up in clumps, and that's where they do their damage. So they go to the healthy proteins, make them fold incorrectly also, and then they start forming up in clumps and groups, and then that's where we get the disease. So the main way that they harm deer is that they go to the brain tissue of the deer or the elk or the moose or whatever hoofed animal it infects. And so what they do once they're there is these prions go to the brain and they will start going to the healthy proteins and starting them to fold incorrectly. And then these little spots that you see here, those are going to be the kind of the clumps of these prions. And so they're going to turn the brain into a sponge essentially, and it's going to cause the brain to degenerate and deform over time. And then if the brain is degenerating and deforming, the brain is responsible for all of our actions, all of our thoughts. You can only imagine what that would do to an animal if the brain started to deform. So what is happening in the deer body? So this is inside of the muscle tissue of a deer with CWD, chronic wasting disease. CWD is just short for chronic wasting disease. So these prions, this is the muscle tissue of a regular deer. All right. As you can see, these prions start gathering in large groups in the skeletal muscle tissue. So they start building up and gathering and changing all those healthy proteins into bad proteins. So how does it work? So if there is a deer with chronic wasting disease, this is mostly spread through feces, urine, and blood and sweat. So it's mostly transmitted through liquids between these animals, and it's highly contagious between them. Very, very highly contagious. It can there's some herds where the infection rate is over 70-80%. So what happens is a deer who gets chronic wasting disease, they will pee out their urine, which will have the prions in it, and then that urine will get stuck in the soil somewhere, and then plants will grow near it, and then deer who want to eat will go eat those plants near the soil or in the soil where that diseased deer went to go pee. And so if that healthy deer starts eating the plants around where the infected deer was peeing, it can get some of those prions in its body when it's eating the plants. And so what happens is that deer then becomes infected with the prions and chronic wasting disease. And then so what happens is this is where the whole zombie deer thing comes in. And then so what happens is when that deer who has chronic wasting disease gets the prions inside of it, it can take up to 2 years. It can take up to 7 years sometimes, but the scary thing about this is the disease has a very long incubation period, meaning that there's a very long time between you getting the prion in you and then the prion showing or the disease starting to show symptoms in these deer. So they can take about 2 years, a year, 2 years, up to 7 years sometimes, but mostly around 2 to 3 years for these deer to start showing symptoms. And the symptoms of this disease, they start to have tremendous they start to have tremendous weight loss. They start to drool, salivate. They start to not have appropriate reactions to things. So remember, the brain is degenerating, it's becoming like a sponge. So they're not going to react normally to predators and things like that. So if a human goes near it, they're not going to run away. If a bear goes near it, they're not going to run away. And they're over urinating. They're not really, they kind of lose their appetite. They're kind of just wandering around, wasting around. That's why it's called chronic wasting disease, because these prions, when they start gathering in large groups in the body and in the brain specifically, it kind of makes the deer lose its coordination, lose its appetite, and they just a lot of them become depressed, and they just roam around and eventually find a place and lay down and then just kind of die. It's really sad, actually. So the scary thing about this is that it has a 100% fatality rate, meaning that 100% of the animals who get this essentially die. So there is no cure right now or anything like that. So it's a pretty serious illness in deers right now. All right, so what does it do to animals? So in animals, and like I was saying earlier, in these elk and these deer, so what it does is it makes them waste away. So their heads start to droop, their ears start to droop, and they, as you can see here, you can start to see their rib cage a little bit, and they just kind of waste away. It's really sad. So I'm gonna show you some videos right now of chronic wasting disease in deer. Let's see some videos. So, and they lose motor coordination too. So they kind of like move around abnormally and don't really react to their environment as they normally would. So as we can see here, this deer is really skinny, lost a lot of weight. He's kind of in a weird stance that's not really normal. He's on the road. He's not really with his herd. He's not really looking to eat anything. He's kind of just existing, wandering around mindlessly, not really aware of his surroundings, not really looking at anything in particular. That's why it's called chronic wasting disease, because they kind of just waste away. Here's another video of a deer walking abnormally, walking kind of funny, because they lose motor coordination. They lose their balance. They lose the ability to move their muscles with their mind, because the brain is degenerating, it's deforming, turning into a sponge. Let's see here. There's one more I wanted to show you. Then here, this one, there's this hunter that went out into the woods, and then he found this deer just kind of like chilling there. It's not usually the deer's going to run away from you, but this deer is just kind of staring at him. He's really skinny. You can see his ribs starting to show. He's just kind of like breathing really heavily, and he's not. They're just kind of existing, kind of just wasting away. So this this disease is really scary for these animals because it causes them just to kind of lose their mind and like just kind of waste away until they die. So really, really, really terrible disease for deer and elk and moose and other hoofed animals in the US. So quite scary stuff. So why are scientists worried about this? So there's several reasons why scientists are worried about this. They a lot of people in the US eat deer, also called venison meat, when you cook it. So it's quite popular in the US. I think a recent poll showed that like 60 or 70% of people have had venison at some point in their life. And the reason scientists are worried right now is because with the coronavirus that just has been taking over the world essentially, these remember these Wuhan, these wet markets in China and Asia, they sell all different types of animals, of hygiene and health practices in these markets aren't usually top notch. So it's very easy for viruses to jump from animals to humans in these type of environments. So what scientists are worried about is if this disease, this chronic wasting disease, CWD, makes the jump to humans. There's no evidence that it's made that jump. There's been no human cases of chronic wasting disease, but the potential is there, and we have to be kind of vigilant about it. Otherwise, it's a pretty terrible scenario to be in. And the thing that scares scientists is that this isn't. It wouldn't be like a mutation where we see here in the virus that causes it to jump to humans. The folding of the protein isn't caused by a mutation. It's actually happening after the protein is translated in the ribosome. So this isn't caused by a mutation. So the genetic sequence of that protein is actually, the genetic sequence that makes that protein is actually the same as the genetic sequence that makes the healthy protein. So the immune system isn't going to target, the immune system doesn't target the misfolded proteins, the prions. The immune system isn't going to target those prions like it would with a virus or bacteria. So there goes our immune system, our first line of defense, and then heat doesn't seem to kill it. So as we saw with like toxoplasmosis and tapeworms, where if you cook it properly, you don't have to worry about it as much, and it's mostly a problem in raw meat. Even heat and cooking these properly doesn't seem to kill or not kill, but destroy the prions. And things that usually would destroy them, like the acid in our stomach, doesn't seem to affect these prions either. So it's a quite scary scenario, if this did make the jump to humans. Like I said, I'm not trying to scare y'all. There's no jump from there's no cases of it in humans right now. But I mean, it is something that scientists are worried about. So can it infect us? Well, right now, no. The answer is no right now. There are no reported cases in humans, but the other side of that is we don't know what the future holds. So what the scientists did was they have been doing research for like the past 9 years or 10 years. I think it's been going on it's been like 7-8 years of research, and they've been studying how chronic wasting disease, if it can infect and cross over to other non-human primates, and animals. So can this disease jump from deer to other animals? And the answer is yes. So it can jump from species to species. So scientists took the meat of deer with chronic wasting disease, and they fed it to several types of animals. They fed it to these squirrel monkeys, and they fed it to these macaque monkeys, and they also fed it to mice who were genetically altered to have proteins more similar to humans than they usually do. And so what they found was that the chronic wasting disease symptoms did develop in all three types of animals. So the chronic wasting disease was able to jump to mice and squirrel monkeys and macaques. At first, it was thought that it was just squirrel monkeys and not the macaque monkeys. But recently, in the past 2 years, they have shown that, or 3 years, they have shown that the disease has jumped to the macaque monkeys. So the reason this is important that it jumped to macaque monkeys is because the macaque monkeys have have a way more genetic similarities with humans than the squirrel monkeys do. So when it jumped to squirrel monkeys, we were like, oh, that's unfortunate. But then when it was able to jump to macaque monkeys, and they have a very similar genetic sequence to humans, we're like, ooh, that's a little bit scary. So it has been able to make that jump. Scientists fed the animals with the infected meat, and they also did some studies where they put it, like, kind of injected it into their brains. And so in both scenarios, the disease did happen. It took a few years, for the disease to manifest itself in these animals, and they showed similar symptoms as these deer losing weight. The macaque monkeys that got this lost weight, they started showing like neurological, I don't know how to say it. They started showing like motor loss and lack of appetite and salivating and things like that. So drooling. So it has been able to jump to monkeys. So now scientists are worried if one day this jumps to humans. So right now there's no evidence of that. There's no case of that, but it is a very scary disease because there's no cure for it, and things like our immune system and heat that would normally kill viruses and bacteria don't really seem to affect this prion, this disformed protein. So yeah, so it's called chronic wasting disease because it essentially just turns these deer mindless, kind of like zombies, and they just wander around. They don't know what's going on. They lose control of their behavior and of their movement, don't react to anything, lose their appetite, and then eventually just rot away, So it's pretty sad. And whenever these animals rot away, whenever it's kind of just dying there, the prions will still be in the saliva or blood or whatever of that animal. So if a deer goes and like sniffs that animal that died, then that deer could get the disease. So the government and scientists are warning hunters to test their I don't know if it's I'm not too familiar with hunting, but I don't know if it's a requirement to test your deer for chronic wasting disease, but scientists and government are suggesting and hoping that hunters, or at least I would hope that hunters and those that eat deer would test their deer for chronic wasting disease before they eat it, even though there's no confirmed human cases. Just want to be careful. So yeah. All right, so that was it for today, y'all. Pretty cool stuff, pretty scary stuff, but that's biology, y'all. That's biology. That's what's going on in animals right now, So there's a lot of really interesting stuff in biology that I think is pretty cool. This stuff is cool and scary at the same time, but it's important that we learn about it because there's so much going on in biology that isn't just on the STAR test. So that's one of the good things about this at home school is that we can go more into detail about the cooler stuff in biology. So that's gonna be it for today, y'all. Hope y'all had a good time and get some good sleep. I'll put some questions on Schoology. All right, bye, y'all. Wait, that did not work.